Welcome to Tech This Way.
Anyway, thanks a lot for joining us.
No
Or
problem.
joining me.
It's a pleasure. Yeah.
So CEO for INTI.
It's a job.
It's a job, but it's a fairly interesting job in a very interesting industry right now.
Yeah, I love
Right.
it. I mean, it's something that I look forward to going to work. Right? It's I feel really privileged, right, to be in this position,
To be brainwashing all these kids.
to be able to have an impact.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
So I guess before we go into that though, how did
Uh.
you end up where you are? I mean, go as far back as you want, even if it's before your education. I mean, your work in education.
well, I mean, like I kind of fell into this in a very roundabout way.
Okay.
Right. I didn't start out wanting to be in this line. Didn't even think about it. Right. So I went to all these little schools. Kuala Krai Primary School.
Oh, okay.
Um,
So you're from Kuala Lumpur.
My father had a job
Ah.
where he was transferable.
Okay.
Right. So I went to school in Kuala Krai Primary School. Then I went to secondary school, Form 1, Form 2 in Kuala Krai as well. Then we moved to this place called Palo in Johor. It's the town has two streets, literally two streets. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Small town.
Small town. To get to Kluang, there were no roads, so you had to take the train.
Okay.
So that was it. Or you go on this laterite road. When it rains, guarantee you'll get stuck. Right? Yeah. It was 40 miles of laterite road.
Wow.
Otherwise, you take the only paved road. You go to Kangkar Baru. From Kangkar Baru, you go to Yongping, which is, by the way, a town which probably 4 streets.
Right.
Right,
But it's double yours lah.
Yeah lah. So when we went to that town, culture shock. Everyone goes around. All your classmates know how to ride a motorcycle. Number one, even
no
though they're
helmet.
14. Yes, and no helmet. What's that? Helmets are like
Optional.
optional, right? So the biggest building there, besides the school, was the police station.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was it. No hospital.
Wow. At least a post office lah.
Yes. Small post office. Small.
And police station.
Big police station. A school building, typical school building, right? And then, of course, the railway station. Small one, right? Because that's how you get to Kluang, which, by the way, is a town. Thankfully, with more than 4 streets.
Yeah.
Right. So, everybody would go to Kluang, get on the train, go to Kluang, buy your stuff and come back.
Right.
Yeah. So that those were that
So you
was
grew
the
up in really small,
Yeah.
rural Malaysia lah.
yes. Then I did Form 6. Oh, Form 6. Of course, such a small town doesn't have Form 6. So all of us have to go to Kluang High School.
Okay.
So the whole lot, went to Kluang High School. Then had to look for rented rooms and all that. So that was my typical, schooling, right? So very, very normal, very typical Malaysian style schooling, right? So, which they're good and bad, but I guess through some circumstances, I went and trained as an accountant, and I ended up in an MNC.
Okay.
Okay, so typical, the way we've been taught, you keep quiet, you sit in the class, you don't answer if the teacher doesn't ask you to answer. If you answer wrongly, the whole class laughs at you,
Yeah.
right?
So you're not exactly encouraged to have a conversation
it's
lah,
not
discussion
a
lah.
safe place to even
Yeah.
right, because in those days, you give a wrong answer, there'll be some smart aleck laughing at you, right? In the first place, if the teacher didn't ask you for an opinion, also who asked you to have an
What
opinion?
you say, yeah.
Right?
In
So
fact, probably the teacher doesn't want you to have an opinion, right?
yeah,
I am here to regurgitate whatever I have into your brains and you just absorb.
yeah, and you just do your homework, which, by the way, we also cheated.
Yeah.
You go and borrow the homework of the hardworking kids and you just copy.
And copy lah.
Right. So anyway, so
So it was a typical classroom setting,
very,
right?
very
Education
typical.
setting
Very
for most
typical.
Malaysians. I think.
So yeah, but I would say one which was in some ways very inclusive,
Mm.
right? Because you had people from all walks of life.
Yeah.
So was fun, but I wouldn't say it was what gave you the tools to be in an MNC.
Okay.
And then when I trained as an accountant, I did a professional accounting course.
Mm-hmm.
I did ACCA.
Okay.
So again, didn't go to a university, didn't have the sort of environment where people will encourage you to speak up and all that. ACCA is just it's really, really tough technically, right? So you just make sure that you're there and all that, right? And on top of all that, I challenged myself. I wanted to finish everything in 4 sittings flat.
Okay.
Straight from beginning to the end, which I did.
Wow.
Yeah, that time wanted to come out and earn money.
Right.
So that was the fastest way of earning money, right? So from 6, all your friends in university are still in university, and you're out in the
Working
workforce.
already, yeah.
Right. So yeah, now you think back, you don't know what the rush was.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
You realize that I'm not sure who you were competing with, but everybody seems to be competing with each other. Right?
Yeah.
But at this stage now, nobody knows what batch you are. Nobody cares, right? You're always on your own.
Yeah.
race.
But those are the things.
But those are the things. Right? In fact, if you can skip skip year is even better.
Yes,
right?
yes. That's this race that you're going on, right?
Go to work quick, right?
Yeah. So when I ended up in an MNC, and I remember, so we would sit in conference calls, and I would write notes and pass to my boss, right? Because I didn't dare to say,
right?
What if people think I'm stupid? Right. So one day he unmuted and he said, "Lina has something to say."
Oh, out of the blue.
Yeah. The next minute, you can hear douche. My head actually hit the table. I was like, my God, how can he do this to me? I am such a good employee. I work my everything off, for you, and you do this to me.
Oh, so you saw it as a punishment, or
yes, right, which is a very strange way of thinking, right?
Yeah.
So and you start sweating and all that, because you
on the spot.
I have to say something, and basically you have 10 markets in Asia, they're all sitting there listening, and you have no choice, right? Okay. Such a horrible experience, right?
Yeah.
So then I went back home that night and I thought to myself, I said, why did that happen? Why was I so absolutely terrified, right? Then, slowly you admit to yourself, why are you so terrified? Because you don't want to look stupid in front of everyone else, right? And you're so afraid that you look stupid. And that's where, I think that, our schooling system doesn't really help us, right? Because it doesn't give our kids a safe environment to learn how to speak up. Right? So
right. To be wrong.
To explore.
Yeah.
Right? To be encouraged. And, I mean, that's not exactly the best thing. Right? So
do you think that is still a problem today? Definitely was during our time, but
yes,
today too.
I think that it's getting better, but I would still say that we really need to provide people with an environment where they can practice in a safe way. Right? And at the end of the day, it's all about practice. Nobody is born knowing how to do this.
Yeah.
Right? So
but your parents would have said, look, you got your ACCA, so the education system must have been quite good. They put you through that, right? I mean, the focus was to get your paper qualifications, right?
Yes, and I was considered brilliant because nobody makes it through ACCA in 4 sittings flat, start to end, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day,
yeah.
it equipped me very, very well for the technical part. But as we all know, when you go out to work, it's not only the technical part, right? You do need to know the technical stuff, but you have a wrapper of skills that you need.
Yeah.
And in this day and age, that's even more important. Right? So, So yeah, that was it. Then
So after MNC? After your MNC stint, then what did you do?
Then I came to INTI, but so let me just talk a little bit about how I got through this, okay? So
Sure.
I told myself and said, okay, what are you so afraid of? You're really, really afraid of people thinking that you're stupid, right? So I said, okay, I'm going to challenge myself because I know if I don't, I'll never go anywhere. That is my limit, right? That will always be my fear. And how do you get rid of the fear? You stare it in the eye, right? So my next meeting, I said that I'm going to go and say this, okay? I'm going to say, excuse me. I'm not sure whether I'm asking a stupid question. So I was like, before you call me stupid, I call myself stupid. You had no chance to call me stupid. I've already done it, okay? That's it. I put the elephant on the table. Right? So I said, A said this and this, and then you said this and this. How do we connect the dots? Because I don't really understand. Maybe can you help me understand this? Right? And there was dead silence in the meeting because actually nobody else knew the answer.
Right. So you thought initially, right? Was I the only idiot here? So I put it actually,
no one knew the answer. Right.
Yeah.
So that was that was the first time I was like, hey, actually the only question, which is a stupid question, is the question that wasn't asked. It doesn't mean that everyone else knows it. And what have you got to lose?
Everybody's scared to ask too, right? But did you go back to your boss earlier and said, like, hey, why did you put me on the spot? Did you ever ask him?
He saw me. I was sitting in front of him.
Right.
And he saw my head go boom on the table. Okay.
Yeah.
And he was this Englishman, very stiff upper lip, said, nope. Last time I'm asking questions for you. You ask your own questions.
Oh, I see, because you were scribbling questions for him to ask.
For the last 6-7 months, every time scribble questions,
You go ask lah.
Yes, precisely, right. I think he just got fed up. It's
Right,
like, you have a voice. When we're not in meetings where there's lots of people, you have a lot of opinions, but you must only tell me. You can't tell everyone else, right?
Yeah.
Because too scared.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think he actually gave me, he challenged me, and of course I had to go back and be very truthful to myself as well. Right? So from that moment on, I kind of lost all that thing about being stupid, right? So I was like, okay, so what if I'm stupid? Okay. Every time I ask a question, I put the elephant on the table. I already offered to you that I may be stupid. Right? But I'm still going to ask the question because I'll learn something.
And you need to know for whatever reason, right?
Yeah. So that was how, And then there was a project that was supposed to carry the MNC 20 years into the future.
Okay.
And then they made this call. We were an organization of 40,000 people. 40,000 plus people. They wanted 40 from all over the world, and they basically wanted 6 finance persons, 6 sales, 6 order capture, 6 order fulfillment, 3 customer care, and 6 marketeers.
Okay.
Right. So and everybody interviewed for it, and I looked at it and I was like, I have no chance in hell of getting in, right? But this one of my friends kept saying, you should go and try. So I remember putting in the entry 3 minutes before midnight. The cutoff is midnight. And we were freaking out because we didn't know whether it went through. And then as you have it, we have IT issues and all that. Then I sent it to another friend in New York and I said, did you get my email? And she said, yeah, I got your email. So it must have gone through, right? Okay, so that was that. So they conducted interviews and I looked at the people I was
this is a fairly serious project if they did this, right? I mean,
it was
interviews to get an internal project.
I think US 400 million.
Oh, okay. Fairly sizable irrespective of the size of the company.
Yeah, so it was supposed to be a 3-year project. So so I interviewed for it and then I saw who I was up against, the people. I was like, okay, there is really no way in hell I'm going to get this, right? So, okay, never mind. We just interview for the heck of it, right? And I remember telling the interviewer, good luck with the rest, of the interviews. I hope you have as much fun talking to them as I've had talking to you. Right. I did have fun talking to him because I was like, what the heck, you're not going to get it.
So no
right?
pressure.
No pressure. So just, they asked, why you want to do this? And I was like, because it was a transformation project, right? So it was like, this is how I see it, Okay. Then the call came and I actually got it. I was like, oh my goodness, I can't believe it, Yeah, then I asked this same boss who had, actually unmuted the phone.
Right.
Yeah, and I asked him, I said, what are you going to do, because we work very, very closely. And he was like, just go for it, right? And he said that, he was very kind. He actually said that, I'll pretend you walked out the door and got hit by a bus. I'll manage, just go.
Yeah.
And so, so long and short of it was I went home, asked the husband said, okay. I said, you sure? He was like, okay. So, okay, everybody packed, we went across. So we went across.
Where to?
New York.
Oh, I see. Wow.
Yeah, so, and it was such a big project, So they brought 40 families from all over the world together.
Amazing.
Yeah, and they
Yeah.
housed us in temporary housing. There were so many of us. We took the entire block. Then they had to go and take the block opposite the road for temporary housing, and it was really crazy.
So the expectation is for 3 years you'll be there running this project or doing this project.
And like you had I think one Guatemalan, 4 Brazilians, a Polish, a Hungarian. It's either 1 Bulgarian or 2 Bulgarians and 1 Romanian. I can never tell them apart. Or is it two Romanians, 1
Eastern
Bulgarian?
Europe
Or
there somewhere.
yeah, and they also go together always.
Yeah.
You had people from the UK and of course people from all over the US who also relocated.
Yeah.
Right. So
And this Malaysian.
and this
How
Malaysian.
many Malaysians were there?
1 Malaysian, 1 Asian. Me. The whole project.
So you represented the whole of Asia.
Yeah, right. So it was freaky, and we a lot of fun. We all had to relearn how to take our driving test. We had the US doesn't care. You can have any driver's license. They make you redo your driver's test, right? So it was crazy. You had people who, we have all been driving for a long time. We all have bad habits, right?
Yeah.
So and some people, so I think we caused chaos at the DMV.
This 40 crazy, not 40 lah, but enough
Yeah.
crazy for foreigners. Yeah.
Yeah. So there was a Brazilian guy when it was absolutely funny because his English is not so good. So the tester said something like turn around or something, and he signaled and he pulled to the side. And the guy said, "I told you to turn around." He says, Relax. Our English not so good. I need think first, okay?" So he pulled to the side to try to translate. And I said, he put the signal and he turned, okay? So we had all sorts of crazy stories like this, okay?
Yeah.
And culturally, it was very diverse. And remember the Guatemalan, and there was also a Spanish lady, right? So, and the Guatemalan comes into the office every morning, and his greeting is he goes and kisses everyone.
Okay.
That's his
I
greeting.
guess that's the thing lah.
So I'm like, okay, if this is what is done, this is what is done lah, right? Every morning he comes and kisses you on the cheeks and all that, right? So finally, after 1.5 months, the Spanish woman says, "Enough, no more kissing." And I'm like, "Ooh, this is not done," right? And she was like, "We kiss too in Spain, but not every day. Okay, I see you every day. Stop it, okay?" Yeah, so it was pretty much of a melting pot.
Interesting cultural mix lah.
Yeah, but a lot of fun. But I asked myself, I said, why do you have all these people from Europe, from countries that I've never heard of, right? And Asia is so large. Why do you only have 1 Asian? Right? So why? I mean, like, aren't we good enough?
Obviously, there are other countries in the organization lah. In the other countries, I mean, in Asia.
Yes, we were in 10 markets.
Only just the Malaysian.
So, and why as a sole representative of Asia, right? So, and then as I observed it, that it hit me. The same thing that I had a challenge with earlier in my life. It's just that I was so much more blessed because of the exposure, because of having a boss who forced me to speak up. Right? So, I mean, the people in Asia, they were great, technically, but a lot of them struggled to also speak. Right? So, a lot of them struggled to, collaborate, right? Because you have this Asian, psyche about not losing face, wanting to, what if people, you always doubt yourself, what if people know that I don't know, right? This is a very different mindset to one where it says that, okay, it's fine, I don't know, and therefore I'm going to find someone who knows and we're going to work together, right? So, yeah. So I think
it was more about your own self-image, right? That you're always protecting.
And I think that is really part of it is because of the way we were taught in school, right? Because it's like but we're told to sit quietly, listen, only answer if I ask you to answer, right? It's like learning how to ride a bike. If you don't fall a few times, how are you going to learn how to ride it, right? So yeah, so that was the realization. It's not that we aren't great, right? It's just that we never practice how to, articulate our thoughts, how to string it together so that people can understand it, how to, in some ways, not be so afraid. Our fear keeps us in that corner, right? Versus being able to go out and put it on the table and say that, I don't know certain things, but you know certain things, and together we're going to build something much better, right? So yeah, that was so that was the lesson that that really stuck with me,
Yeah.
right? And I mean, I wasn't smarter than anyone else here. It's just that through circumstances, I have been forced to speak.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
So,
to crack that shell, right? Just be open.
yes, right. And at times it was like so tough, I honestly tell myself that, if I didn't have a family to feed, I probably would have run away from that job.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
But because you have to, then you would. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, so that was what really, really struck me. And when the same boss who actually unmuted the phone, he asked me, he said, come on back, I need you back here. I was like, this is quite enjoyable. I like the work here and all that. And he kept a role open for me for 6 months. And everybody in New York said, nobody keeps a role open for you for 6 months just for you. You might want to think about going back, right? So they said, oh, okay, yes and no, yes and no. Then I spoke to him. I said that, if I come back, can I play a hand in training the next generation of Asian finance professionals so that we stand head and shoulders on a global stage, same as everyone else? And he said, yeah, sure.
Okay.
Right? So that was something that I said that I'll sign up.
Right.
Right.
So what drove you to that need to go help others, right? So you realize it for yourself, obviously, and then to just say, hey, you know what? If I'm like this, I want to make sure the others are similarly driven to be more open. Why was that?
You lead one life. When you go, what's the impact that you have? Right. So when I go, that's my impact.
Right.
Right. So when I was a kid, I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to help people and all that. Now I know that's not going to happen in this lifetime.
Right.
Right. So, but when I leave, well, what is the measure of my success as a human being? What did I do to change the world, to make it better, to change someone's life, to make it better? Right. So this is my impact. Right. So I've been fairly, I would say, religious, but not in a very dogmatic sense of the word. Right. So I've always said that, I want to try to do good. But when you're working 14-hour days, what kind of charity are you going to join?
Yeah.
Right. So I told myself, I'll do my charity work in the office, in my work, by training the next generation.
Okay.
Right? So I spent inordinate amounts of time coaching and mentoring and, really, really having conversations. But this was something I was really passionate about.
Right.
And I also realized, I was just lucky. And you have to pay it forward when you're this lucky. Right. So yeah, so that was that. And then INTI came along, I thought that MNC they basically made me. I'm eternally grateful to them. I had so many different roles. I learned, they put me in the transformation project. I did process mining 10 years ago, in 2010.
Right.
So, they trained me to write functional specs so that coders in India who I would never ever speak to would be able to understand what I wanted and code it for me. Right. So
you had some systems delivery experience too?
Yeah. So they taught me the, like how important data was, to set up correct data structures, to look at metadata. Right. So, that was, I owed them a lot of things. They taught me how to PM. Nothing was a cost. Everything was, you're thrown into the deep end and you kind of learn.
Yeah.
Right. In that project, there were so many people who were very, very kind to me too. So each one of the workstream leads was an authority in his or her own right. Right. The head of sales was someone who started out 20 over years ago, walking door to door as a door-to-door salesman.
Wow.
And he rose all the way to be a VP. right? So I mean, this guy knows everything there is about
It's in his
selling.
blood, lah, right?
Right? You know, yeah. So the guy who was doing all the fulfillment, he helped to turn around the Mexico business. That's a huge business, and it wasn't really, you know, in a good spot. He turned it around, right? So these were people who, you know, really were masters in their own right, and they were very, very kind to this, you know, Asian kid. You know, I would go up to them in it, you know, and say that, you know, do you have 5-10 minutes? Can I discuss something with you? Even though they were not my work stream lead, and you know, they would say, yeah, sure, sit down, or they would say, you know, come back at 5 o'clock, you know, and I would be, you know, bouncing ideas off them, telling them this is what keeps me awake at night about the business, you know, and they would say, why does it keep you awake? What angle are you coming from? You know, and I would like, so to me, that was actually my MBA school, right? So, and the amazing generosity of people to give you their time.
Yeah.
So I never forget that. That's why, you know, anyone who wants to talk to me, any young person, I will try my very best, you know, whether that advice is useful or not, you all decide yourself, okay? Right? But I will share whatever I have, because these people shared so much with me,
right?
So yeah, so I mean, that's why I do what I do, right? So when INTI came calling, it was a very difficult decision, you know. This MNC in my mind made me who I am. They gave me so many different opportunities, things which most typical accountants wouldn't have done, right? You know, I went and put in a sales and operating process, an S&OP process across 10 markets in Asia, you know, things like that, which are not what your typical accountant does, right? So,
and it's quite fulfilling to see that, right? Hey, you can see parts of the business. Hey, you know, I did that, right? Or my team did that with me.
Yeah, so it was amazing, and you know, like I saw it end to end, right? So yeah, they gave me a role where I looked after pricing and margins throughout Asia. You know, they were in FMCG, so I saw how new products came to being. You know, I was part of a stage gate process, and so there were so many things that I saw. Yeah, so when INTI came calling, then I was like, not really sure about this, you know, not really sure again and again, you know. But then what nailed it was that, do you want to make an impact on 17,000 lives? You know, and the CEO of that time said, I want students who are going to be able to communicate and collaborate. I said, okay, so coming.
Somehow it just kind of clicked, right?
Yes. Yeah. I was like, you know, you came back to make a difference, you know, and you were basically trying to address the pool of, you know, basically finance professionals. Now you get to address so many different people.
Yeah.
Right. So, you know, for better or for worse, you get to try to give people an environment where they will have a safe place to learn how to communicate, to learn how to collaborate.
Yeah. When did you join INTI then?
2014.
Okay. So that was 6 years ago.
Yes. November 2014.
Right.
Yeah.
And I guess in accounting, or am I wrong?
Yeah, I was the CFO.
Okay.
Right. So joined, and then over the next 1.5 years, we did a huge transformation of the back office.
Okay.
Of our own finance, you know, because when I stepped in, I was like, oh, okay, it looks like we actually have to transform first, okay?
Right.
Yeah.
And I guess fresh from your other transformation, this is like, okay lah, not too daunting, I guess.
Yeah, in a way, it wasn't too daunting, but we weren't doing the sort of stuff that I was doing in the US. It was a lot more basic. We had 20 instances of accounting software.
Okay. Where one would have be sufficient, you know.
Yes. No ERP.
Right.
So, you know, we had to put in an ERP and all that, right? And then life was very tough, you know. Lots of our people worked till 11 o'clock. Lots of people in the office. Midnight, still people in the office, you know. So it was very, very tough, right? So what we did was, you know, we really looked at process, you know, and we used a different KPI. My KPI for process was that everybody goes home at 9 p.m.
Okay.
You cannot dispute that KPI, right? Everyone wants to go home at 9 p.m.
Right.
So I told the whole team, everything we do, there's only one KPI. I'm not going to come and ask you how much money you save, how many headcounts you cut. That's not the point. The point is that life is not great right now. We need to make life better for all of us. So the KPI is everybody goes home at 9 p.m. And we did achieve that. Then it was...
But hang on, just to put things in perspective, right? So 9 p.m. is pretty bad for a lot of people, right?
I know.
And for you
So
guys,
it
it's
was-
an improvement.
Yes, that tells you how,
Yeah.
Yeah, so then after that was everybody goes home at 8 p.m. So it was like, oh, yes, we can do this, right?
Right.
Then it was like everybody goes home at 7. Eventually everybody goes home at 6. And then I was like, oh, okay. So I'm the only one who doesn't go home at 6. And then now I got no dinner. Nobody buys dinner for me.
Yeah.
But it was one of the happiest days when, I went to the finance room. I saw, oh, lights all off. Everybody
Right.
gone, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was our kind of, our own back office transformation,
Mm.
right? And we use a very human KPI,
Mm.
right? So that's why to me, when people talk about, IR 4.0, the bots are coming and all that, and, I turn around and say that, but that's not the story. The story is not about the bots. The story is about us, the humans,
Mm.
right? So I think you scare people when you talk about the jobs that are going to be lost. I think it's better to talk about the fact that you have to understand transformation, especially digital transformation, and it's meant to make us more human. It's
Hmm.
meant to take the robotic work out of us and allow us to do the more creative work,
Yeah.
the stuff that bots can't do, which, by the way, goes back to collaboration.
Mm.
No bot is going to be able to call people from different departments who don't see eye to eye and make them collaborate,
Yeah.
right? Find a middle ground. Right? That is something which is uniquely human.
Mm.
So, and that brings me back to, like education.
Yeah.
Right? So, so to me, it's really important, whatever field you're in, whatever technical field you're in, that you don't forget that you need skills. And those skills are the ability to communicate, the ability to collaborate, the ability to solve a problem by essentially looking at it from a very human perspective.
Mm. Mm.
Right?
So you've joined. Okay, so you formally in the education industry, since 2014, right?
Yeah.
So in that period, or even before that, what are the changes that you have seen, gone through, the education industry, or even how we educate, even at primary, secondary school?
I haven't seen much difference in
Oh,
primary
no.
school. Yeah, that's the
And
problem. Yes, right.
Okay. So okay. So
Yeah.
generally you don't, huh?
Yeah. So when we came back from the US, I put my kids in the Chinese school.
Hmm.
We
Right.
homeschool. I mean, we as part of the deal, the company hired us tutors for 6 months, and they tutored the children at home
Okay.
until they could go back into the school system. Right. It was really tough for my daughter, and
So why did you choose the Chinese school?
because I wanted them to have a typical upbringing where they mix with everyone.
Mm.
Right. So I didn't want them to have, to go to a school where everybody was from the same socio-economic background.
Mm.
I wanted them to see, very much like what I had.
Right.
Right. So that to me was the ideal.
Yeah.
So I put them there. Apparently she got rotan because she got up and she was walking around. Then she asked to see the principal, and everybody practically died of shock because no child asked to see the principal.
Yeah.
But
Normally it's the other way, right?
yes.
So how old is she at that point?
She was 8.
Okay.
And she wanted to see the principal because in the US she had been part of the spirit council of the school, and they have this spirit council where the kids get elected to the spirit council, and then they talk about what makes their school, what they think will make their school better, and they go and see the principal
Okay.
to tell their principal.
Right.
Right. So she thought she had access to the principal.
Right.
That
Wow.
was not how it works in Malaysia. Okay?
Yeah. Especially a Chinese school.
Yes.
Yeah.
And everybody was like, why do you want to see the
What?
principal?
Yeah.
Because I want to give suggestions.
Nice.
Not welcome, okay?
I mean, I can imagine. So what happened then? So how did she go back? First of all, what happened?
She
And
got
then-
rotan.
Oh, because she wanted to go see the headmaster. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So what did you do?
I
I'm sure
was
obviously-
oblivious
yeah.
to it.
Huh.
Right? And I was oblivious to it until many months later when she told me, she said, oh, you know how many times I got caned? I was like, really? I said, for what? She said, well, one, because I got up and started walking around in class. Number two, because I wanted to see the principal, because I thought that was not the way that we were supposed to be taught. I was like, oh, goodness.
But it's funny, right? So on one hand, you want to encourage that, right? And yet then you figure out, but why isn't the rest of the school, and not just for that school, right? For the whole system, not encouraging this.
Yeah.
And in fact, you're punishing them, right?
Yes.
So beating them back into the system that was supposed to have the kids sit down.
Yeah.
And listen.
So, I don't know. She's 16 now. I don't know whether the primary schools have changed, but I don't think so, right? So
not to the level that you would hope for, I'm sure. Right?
Yeah. So this is then, so now that, to me, then this leaves the problem, for us to tackle later on.
At the university. So what are the, no disrespect or judgment to all the students at INTI. So how do you see the level of openness and collaborativeness that you see in the kids that's joining INTI? Or any university, per se, right? Not just INTI.
I think this is why, we need to provide a safe environment for them, and we need to basically stress it, right? So, and I think that this is being done in different degrees and different levels of intensity, right? In different organizations or rather different institutions, right? Because I think even to get this awareness out, sometimes it's not that easy. People think that, hey, this is just, this is just marketing talk. To me, it's not marketing talk. It makes a difference when you go out to work.
Yes.
Right.
For sure.
So things like that. I think that in the secondary level, they have done a better job. They are more, schools have more project-based learning. Projects are part of the exams. You get marks for the projects and all that.
And project-based means, you're forced to work with other kids and discuss and explore.
And that's where you realize, that there will be kids who don't do the work, and then and sponge off you, and then then you'll have the people who won't share, the ultra, this is my project, and it's my
the
marks.
bossy ones,
But how else are you going to learn? Right?
To work with other people.
How else are you going to learn?
The different personalities.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you go out to work, it doesn't mean that you're going to end up with everyone ultra nice, ultra able to understand you, right? Yeah. So you have to start somewhere, right? So I will say I do think that it's better in the sense that, in the secondary schools, we have more of that. During my time, we certainly didn't have that at all. It was 100% exam based. Yeah. Right. So so we are making, we're changing, but then I would say, are we changing fast enough?
Do you think it's too late? By the time they come to uni or college, that they've set in their ways, or is it still, you can still provide that safe space, and therefore they might still change over the 3-4 years they are in college?
I think it's never too late when you're a human being, right? Because we are our brains are plastic, right? And we can, but obviously the earlier you do it, the better it is, right? So people have had a head start 12 years earlier than you. So,
it's a bit of catching up to do.
Right. But I think what we have is a lot of resilience. Asians are very stoic, very resilient, right? Yeah. So I think that's one angle, how we view teaching, how we view, learning, And I guess the other one is the fact that we need to acknowledge that our kids are not us. They were raised. They were raised in a different way. We wanted to have dinner uninterrupted. We gave them the phone. Right? So then after that, we wonder why they don't have attention span.
Yeah.
Right? So...
And it's scary to see even, how young, kids start having the phones, right? To keep them quiet, essentially, right?
Yeah. You go out, parents are trying to have dinner and all that. You'll see, you shove the phone to the kids so that they can watch Baby Shark or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Just to
in
keep
fact,
them
in a dining table with the whole family, sometimes you see everybody with a phone, right?
Yes.
The only thing they're sharing is the food.
Yes.
But no conversation, nothing else.
Yes. Yeah. So, but I think, so you have these two things, the fact that we need to teach, and we need to provide a safe environment for them to to practice communicating, to practice collaboration, to practice creativity, critical thinking, how to problem solve. Problem solving doesn't mean you go at it one way. You can solve a problem multiple ways, right? So there is no perfect right answer, right? So, we have to teach that. Then on the other hand, you have kids who, because we needed to eat dinner a bit more peacefully, we gave them the devices. So then, they have shorter attention spans. Right. And then you're wondering why, when you stand in front and start lecturing, where's the attention?
So obviously you see that. Do you see a change or it getting worse in terms of the attention span the students are having in colleges, in lectures?
Yeah, a lot of the teachers will tell you that, right? And in fact, there's a study that's done that actually says that teenagers nowadays, have shorter attention spans, and they struggle to get through, the sort of reading that we used to be able to get through, right? I put it as, partly with all this digital media that we have, we've kind of trained them to expect things fast in bite sizes and all that.
Yeah.
So now, we've got to find a way to basically drive the same outcomes through different means, right? So I always tell my teachers, I say that, how are you going to drive outcomes if you can't capture eyeballs?
Yeah, right. Unless you capture them through the devices.
Yeah, so you have to teach in a different way. You have to teach in a way where, and is it so much teaching as in facilitating and jointly learning? Right. So
what is it? So what are you guys trying to do to help facilitate that education, right? How do you get the eyeballs?
We don't believe in a very Socratic manner of teaching, where I stand in front of the class and I just lecture, right? So even way back in 2014, we already started, teaching and training our teachers. Everything, of course, starts with training the teachers, training your lecturers, right? So we talk to them about flipping a classroom.
Okay.
Flipping a classroom means that, where you basically get the students to look at the notes ahead of the class, study on their own first, and then you come to the class and you have a discussion.
Okay. Right.
So you don't come to the class to be fed the information.
Yeah.
You do some of it first. And then you come to the class to have a discussion where with your classmates and where your teacher then facilitates it. So that's flipping a class.
Okay.
Right. That to me is very important because in this day and age, when we work, a lot of it is also how you find the information yourself. Yeah. Right? How do you learn? And in this day and age, we have to learn, unlearn, and relearn. Right? So this is all the time. Right? So, it's not like, oh, I come, you teach me, I pass the exams, that's the end of my learning. That's going to be real bad for anyone who has that attitude now.
Yeah.
Right? So that's, flipping a classroom helps in the sense that you're already teaching them a skill. How to self-direct and do. And then you come and you have the richness of conversation and discussion. Right? So what we did was, even way back before MCO, way before MCO.
Right.
Every lesson, 1 hour is online, 2 hours is face-to-face.
Okay.
And the online is where we flip the classroom, we put all the information, everything, right? So you actually learned beforehand and then you come in, right? And then and then the online ones, it's not turning on a video and saying that I stand in front of the video and I teach and that's considered online. No.
Same as a lecture lah, right?
That
like
one,
a physical lecture.
What's the difference?
Just doing digital.
Yeah. And I recall when I was a student, was my final paper, final 6 months. And one of my friends said that, final 6 months, we have to sit right in front. We have to sit right in front, okay? And I was like, I don't do so well sitting right in front, because I cannot focus on, okay? And she was like, no. Okay, fine. Peer pressure, so sit in front. Right? Then... So
that's closer to the knowledge lah.
That's what she thinks lah, right? I sit at the back, I'm a backbencher, right? Yeah. So it's more interesting sitting at the back because you can chit-chat. That way you don't fall asleep, right? Because actually lecture, not so...
Okay.
So we sat right in front. Halfway through, I fell asleep and I was holding a pencil. The pencil dropped.
Yeah.
There were 80 plus people in that class. you could hear the silence, and when the pencil dropped, I woke up. Then I saw the pencil roll to the lecturer's foot. It was so embarrassing.
I guess you woke up half the class too, lah, maybe.
Perhaps,
Yeah.
right? But I certainly provided entertainment to the rest of the class.
Yeah.
And my friend, who had insisted we sit in front, she was dying of embarrassment as well,
man,
right? Yeah. I was, of course, red face, red ears, everything, you know. And the lecturer just looked down, looked at me. I couldn't even make eye contact. The next class, my friend said, back, at the back, at the back, okay? So I was like, I told you already, right? Cannot sit in front, right? I told you I cannot. Right? So she was like, so at the back. But what I think I'm trying to illustrate is that even during our days, a lot of times we went to classes and it wasn't like we were truthfully very, very engaged as well, right?
Yeah.
So, and if you think that online is just turning on a video and playing it, that's even worse because how are you going to engage it? You're not even in the same classroom.
Yeah, you can't even have eye contact with all of them. Right?
Yeah. So we don't believe in that. So we believe that e-learning means that, you know, you do blogs, you do wikis, you know, and your teacher, when you do blogs and you do wikis and you do discussion threads, your teacher looks through the discussion threads. She can see how members of the team are discussing. We do quizzes, you know, we do polls.
Yeah.
Right. So it's broken into, you know, you won't have a few hours of a lecture, you know, but it's broken into little bits where you have to actively participate and engage. Right. And of course, with big data, we actually track the engagement.
Right. Of the individual students and the lecturers too, I assume.
Yes. Yeah. So both. Right. So we track how the lecturers use the tools, you know, whether, you know, their lessons have enough assessments, enough quizzes, enough tools, right? We also provide them with easy, for each lecturer, easy access to course analytics. At the press of 4 buttons, they can actually see in their entire class the students who are, you know, the number of minutes they spend on the course, the number of quizzes that they try, and also what's the average. Are they actually scoring above average or below average? And that's for us is really so that we can do early intervention. You know, for the kid who's spending a lot of time on the course, doing all the quizzes, but still below average, you know that child needs
some support.
Yes, right. So then that's the one you zoom in and say that I'm going to do early intervention. Right. The earlier the intervention, the better the chances. Right. So, and we have a platform where we do early intervention. So the teacher essentially writes up an early intervention plan. Right. So, and then that plan has to be approved by the teacher's head of program. And with that, once it's approved, then they execute it throughout the semester. Right. And with that platform, then when the student goes on to the next course, the new teacher actually gets to see what the old teacher was doing to try to intervene.
So there's continuity. And I guess, you know, in the old days, the whole reason why you would have your term exams is to measure if the kids are, you know, okay, right?
Yes.
But it only happens every 4 months, right? Or 6 months.
Yeah.
But obviously that's too late, right? You wait for 6 months and by the time you're not going to be going back with that one child, you know, 6 months worth of syllabus, right?
Yes.
Whereas when you have these kind of technologies now, almost real time, you can see, you know, how they're doing, right?
Yeah, because you really want to catch them right at the beginning, because you just imagine if you sit in a class and you don't understand, it's just going to snowball, right?
Yeah.
And the other thing is also with the traditional, you know, exams, it's a 3-hour paper. How much can you test? Right? It's testing just knowledge, not application. Right? Yeah. So, you know, you have to have a balance of both. Right? So yeah, that's what we've been trying to do.
Right.
Right.
And I think that's I mean, I guess universities and colleges have always been more project based anyway, right, compared to the paper based. And I guess now is it evolving to even more ongoing assessment as opposed to the big exams at the end?
Yeah. And we also do alternative assessments.
Okay, what does that mean?
In the past, an assessment is a final exam. Right. So now our alternative assessments are projects. Alternative assessments can be in many forms. It can be in take-home exams. You know,
Even with Google at home, should be acing it, right? Everybody.
you look at how they apply it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, when you come out to work, you can also have access to Google,
Yeah.
right? So what's important is how you frame it,
Mm.
right? How
Yeah.
how you apply it,
Yeah.
right? So that's what we are looking for,
Mm.
right? So it's very different,
Mm.
right? So yeah, and what we're trying to do is to bring it more, to a place where it's more like working life,
Yeah.
right? Where you really are trying to test how they use it,
Mm.
how they work together
Mm.
to use it, right? So we have things like, we have this online video streaming sort of software,
Mm.
right? So, and it's basically to teach the students a couple of different things: how to present and how to give respectful comments.
Mm.
Because when you're working together, you have to give respectful feedback, right?
Yeah.
So the teacher can use that and say that, okay, assignment for the class. The entire class, everyone has got to do a video explaining this particular concept.
Mm.
And all of you load your videos onto the LMS. And then the rest of the class needs to give comments, respectful comments on each other's videos.
Videos, yeah. But that should be quite fun, right?
Yeah, I've seen some of it, and I actually laugh, because there was one person who was trying to give respectful comment, and he was like, "I like the content of your video. I like the way you explain it, but I'm a bit dizzy. Your hands keep shaking. Your video is not very stable."
Put it on a tripod. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm like, this is how you practice.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
If you
In fact,
don't,
it's how you communicate that which is important, right? Not so much the content. Yeah.
right. So you're testing their understanding of the topic,
Mm.
right? Because the teacher looks at the video as well and says, okay, whether you got it or you don't have it.
Mm.
You're also teaching them how to present in a very safe way.
Mm.
Asian kids present in front of a whole class, very stressful, right?
Yeah.
This one in front of video, take it video,
Easier.
so it's a slow easing of helping you to get there.
Mm.
The third thing is that when you have to respectfully comment on each other's work, you also learn how to give respectful feedback.
Mm.
So you're practicing three things at the same time,
Mm.
right? So that's the direction that we want to move towards,
Mm.
right? And of course, we're gonna get a software where it's safe. We don't want you to put on YouTube where half the world can troll you, right?
Yeah,
So yeah.
So actually, you mentioned earlier about the IR 4.0,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
So obviously, you've just explained a little bit about how our own classrooms are changing now.
Yes.
To prepare for that future workplace that all these kids are going to be going into, right? And it'll be a world full of bots, right? As you put it. So what do you see? The major changes that's going to impact these guys, right? How are they going to have to survive? What are they going to do? Like, what kind of skills do you think they need to survive the new workplace?
I think you hit on it when you say skills, right? So to us, you need to know the technical knowledge. That's baseline, right? But then you have to really get skills, right? And those skills are things like, how do you communicate? How do you collaborate? How do you think critically? How do you essentially bring it all together to solve problems? Bring people together, bring different pieces of knowledge together so you can solve problems, right? Because I put it this way, while they're humans, there will always be problems, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you know how to solve a problem, you will get employed. Our bosses pay us to solve problems.
Yeah.
Right. Sounds very simple, but not so simple, because if you want to solve a problem in the first place, how do you frame that problem? Right? How do you define that problem itself? Then how do you find the correct set of tools, the correct set of people to come together to work on solving that problem? Right? So to me, that is really important. Whichever field you're in, you need to have that. Right? If you have that, you don't have to fear digitalization, right? Because with the technology at the stage that it's in right now, and even when people talk about AI technology, it's not going to be able to do the sort of things that humans can do. They will take away the very repetitive work, right?
Yeah.
Right. But in the first place, I would say that was the robotic part of us, which we don't want. Right? We want to free the humans from that robotic work so that you can really do what a human should be doing, the more creative work, the more human-based work, right? So that to me is really important. And how do you do that across a digital medium?
Yeah.
Right? It's that is super important. So
how is that the importance of, obviously, the digital medium is here to stay and grow, right?
yeah.
What then is the future for physical lectures at big campuses and universities, right? Does it mean that in the not too far future we can have a university run out of a server room and INTI is purely virtual, right? And that you can have, or do you still need to have your teachers, as you said before, right, to be there and engage physically?
I think it's always a mix of both,
Mm.
right? Because university teaching, we can do it. We can teach online. We can teach using e-learning. It's just that we teach in a different way, right? You cannot stand in front of a camera and lecture. That doesn't work. You have to think about how to drive the same outcomes in different ways, right? But there'll be certain subjects. School of hospitality. How are you going to do that?
Right.
You need to be physically there.
Yeah.
Right? You need someone to taste the food, to tell you, to practice. So things like that, you still need the physical, right? So it really depends. It's going to be a mix, right?
But if you take your own vocation, right? If you were an accountant, right? How would you see an accountancy course of the future be? Right? So you had to do your ACCA, when you go to your lectures and then the way you work, right? So if you take that profession, right, and you digitize the hell out of it, right? How would you say the education of the next batch of accountants be?
I would say that you can, for a subject like ours, there's a very, very high probability you can do everything online, right? So it's just that you want the element of face-to-face for the, building of interpersonal skills, things like that, right? But during this MCO, everybody, impossible became possible, right? Lots of bosses say that, oh, you can't have staff working from home,
Yeah.
right? It doesn't work, right? But we made it work.
Yeah. So in fact, on that, how has the MCO forced a lot of these things on INTI? What has changed that you think you're not going to revert back to pre-MCO days, but you're going to stick with?
I think it's beliefs, right? So, no matter what we talk about, it's seeing it in action that leads people to believe that we are able to adapt and be super agile while we're adapting, right? So what happened was that MCO happened on day 2 of final exams in the colleges.
Okay.
Yes.
Right. Just about to start the exams. Day 2.
Day 2. Day 1 already finished.
Right.
Right. So
and this would be a span of a couple of weeks.
5
normally.
days.
Okay, 5 days.
So
Okay.
basically you're on day 2 and you're supposed to be locked down, right?
Yeah.
And this is final exams and sat in a physical
hall,
right? So, and we were adamant, no matter what, we will not interrupt a student's academic journey. So, and we couldn't even go to the office, right? So we all assembled and we said that, okay, how many courses do we have that we have to do the final exams? And the answer was 700.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how many students would that be impacting?
Thousands.
Right.
Right. So
Okay.
so basically what we said was that, okay, how do we change all of this to alternative assessments, have it moderated, have it go through the academic board to make sure that quality is never compromised, roll it out. We did it in 1 week flat.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you you stopped the traditional exams, right?
Yes.
And then went into this alternative assessment instead within a week.
Yes.
Wow.
And we documented everything. Everything was documented, and we went through moderation. We went through exam boards and all that. Academic boards to make sure everything is absolutely. So we were saying that we don't want to interrupt academic journeys, but we are also not going to compromise on quality, right?
Course.
Definitely not, right? So how do we do that? We managed to, right? So so I think if MCO didn't happen, if I had gone and told the team, everybody would have looked at me and I'm like, she's crazy, probably been smoking something which she's not supposed to be smoking,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But we did it.
So how has that now impacted the way you're going to run your courses in INTI? Now that you say, hey, you know what, we could do this whole thing as alternative assessment. Are you thinking of a more whole-scale, widespread change now to the way you run exams?
Well, at this point, we're still not allowed to bring students back to the campus.
Is that
fully.
right? I thought
Yes.
everybody's going to...
Only in October.
Oh, I see. Okay, because my daughter's back in college, so I thought that universities are open already.
No.
Oh, okay.
So it's a gradual opening, right? So the first thing they said was that, 5 classes of students, basically students who need labs.
All right.
Final year students who need labs, let them come back for the labs.
Okay.
That is something that we are very, very grateful for, because to my point, if you're in School of Hospitality, how?
Yeah. You can imagine how this thing is going to taste, right? Okay.
Yeah, so to us,
okay.
then that,
also there is a gradual opening. Okay.
Yeah, and then if you have students who prove to you that they do not have conducive environments at home to do e-learning.
Okay.
So we have some in our Sabah campus.
Right.
They came to us to prove that house flooded, internet not good, things like that. So we say, okay, come back,
Okay.
Specifically, but they had to prove to us, right? So and then they said that okay, students who just joined the latest intake, you are allowed to let them come back because they're not familiar with e-learning yet, right? So you're allowed to let them come back for face-to-face.
Okay.
Right. Then after that, they said that okay, you can bring back up to 30% of your student body.
When in October, or even now.
Then in October, it's like basically you can bring back everyone.
But are you planning to do so?
Yes, in a very socially distanced manner, right?
Yeah.
So so we are planning to do so. But I think this whole thing shows us that what we thought was not possible, even from a work perspective, right? It is possible, right? So and it also shows us at the end of the day is how agile you are and how adaptable you are, right? So
how has the reaction be on the students themselves with having their assessments not done that way? And right now, for those who are, for almost 70% of them who are not able to turn up at universities, how has the impact been on the students?
I'll put it this way, I think the best indicator is in, your dropout rates.
Okay.
Right. So if the students are not happy, they won't continue, right? They won't re-enroll for your next semester, right? Because, for the colleges, our semester ended in March itself. That was why final exams, right? Right.
Okay.
So then the next semester started in late April.
Right.
People
April,
came back.
May, June. Okay, it's been 4 months now.
Yeah. So people came back. Dropout rates were very, very low. Right. So to me, I'll say that I can say whatever. Proof of the pudding is in the eating. If the students come back, then they're okay and they're happy.
They're still engaged. Okay.
Right.
But are they coping studying at home? Apart from the ones that you mentioned, that's not conducive. But are they coping in terms of the learning itself? Do you think they're getting as much out of the courses, or?
I think of course it's a period of adjustment, but I do believe that they are, because in the first place we had already been doing asynchronous learning. Right? We had 1 hour e-learning, which was asynchronous, or we had already done that. So they're all familiar with that. Right? It's just that now we had to turn the 2 face-to-face hours also into
this e-learning thing.
So we had to do synchronous learning as well as asynchronous learning through through an online medium.
Actually, you mentioned that was something you guys were doing even way before, right?
Yes.
So what was the impetus for that? Why did you guys look at doing this online and 2 hours offline?
Because we thought that it drove better engagement and that it was a better way to teach communication, collaboration across a digital medium.
Okay.
Right?
Just force it, right? Use the medium. And then
and because we thought that without this, how do we teach the students how to self-learn and then come to the class, have the sort of discussions, how do we then keep them engaged by the ability to do quizzes, the ability to do polls, the ability to do blogs, wikis. We think blogs are very important in the new world, right? So how do we teach them how to do videos if we don't do that?
Yeah.
Right. video making in my day and age when I was studying is only for the videographer. Nowadays, who doesn't know how to do a video, right?
Yeah. You don't even have a video camera, right?
Yes,
Let alone
you
to
support.
do the video. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So but we would not be able to do that without that e-learning portion.
Wow. And I guess you guys were so lucky for that, right? Because can you imagine
Yes,
if you
yes.
weren't doing that,
Yes.
to suddenly have the infrastructure, the platform, to train your teachers to start
Yes,
doing all these
yes,
things, right?
yes.
It would have been a nightmare. Right?
Yeah. So we had many years to do that. And first we started with training the teachers.
Yeah.
Right? Then we slowly brought the blend up, Then, we put in also the infrastructure for the data analytics.
Yeah. Right.
Because without that,
to monitor,
also...
what's the progress, yeah.
Yes.
Because I thought it is like you're just blind, right? So, okay, we're doing this, but what's the output? How are they doing this?
But it's also a loop, right? Without teaching that way, you also have no analytics. The only analytics you have is attendance in class.
Yeah.
Attendance in class doesn't tell you anything.
Yeah.
You like me, I attended class while sitting at the back.
Yeah.
Right. First time I sit in front, drop the pencil, fall asleep.
Yeah. And I remembered a couple of years ago, I can't remember who I was talking to. They were talking about new education tech, right? And one of the key things was electronic attendance tracking. It's like, okay, that seems a little bit basic, right? Just to say that, to be able to monitor that you turn up in class, but you don't know what they did in the classroom for an hour. Right? That's not exactly edutech. Right?
Yeah. So like for our online programs, we even track the mouse clicks.
Wow.
We track how many minutes and we track how many mouse clicks. Right, so that's the fully online programs.
And then you adjust your content so that they...
Yes, but also we hire someone whose job is to be a mentor. The person rings up the student and say, is there any help that I can give you? Because, we noticed that you didn't really spend much time on the course.
Whoa.
Because these are working adults. We also understand maybe, they haven't been studying for many years. They need some extra support, They're rusty and all that. Yeah.
I wonder if they find it creepy. Whoa, this college, I haven't been looking at this one, right?
No. So far we haven't had complaints that it's creepy. We have had people who are like, oh, thank you for the reminder. Very busy this time around.
Okay.
Right, so...
But in their mind, they're probably saying this is creepy, man. It's a bit like the shopping, right? So how you would have a conversation, right?
Yes.
And then suddenly after this on my Facebook, it'll be all pop up about INTI, right? So like, what? Yeah. Who's been listening to my conversation with Lin Nah?
Yeah. So, but I mean, like, without doing the e-learning, you would not have that sort of data, the richness of that data.
So in fact, that's something that you wouldn't even have if you did have a face-to-face lecture, right?
Yes. That was why we insisted every course needs to be blended. So we have that.
That's interesting.
At the end of the day, we're really trying to drive outcomes for our students, right? But, looking for a student at risk and being able to do early intervention across a big class, that ensures the students' outcomes. Right? So, but how do you do that? If you don't have all this technology ecosystem in place, how do you do that if your teachers are not trained how to even start in the first place? Right? So, so that's why it's an ecosystem. So you're right. When MCO happened, we were like, okay, we can do this.
Yeah. Right?
It's just one more step.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah.
Wow. I'm trying to imagine the other universities and colleges who didn't have that kind of infra in place, right?
Yeah.
Must have struggled.
Yeah. And that's why we are then we have a different grouse. Everybody says we are also online, and we look at theirs and we're like, you just turn on the video cam, right? That is not online, right?
Yeah.
So
it's the most basic of online. Okay, you have Zoom, and then is that it, right?
Yeah. We didn't use any of those like Zoom and all that.
Wow.
We use all our own everything was tied to the LMS. So we didn't use open source. We think that it's not secure enough.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So but we had the infra in place, so we were luckier. The thing was that over a period of 4 years, we invested about 27 million in this infra.
Nice.
Right. So but my grouse is that parents come and say, where's the new building? Where's the swimming pool? And I'm like, why you don't ask about my 27 million spent?
Yeah, the infra that really matters, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Not so much the infrastructure that's out there. You can see.
But then everybody says, that one cannot see. I'm like, okay, that one cannot see. But that one drives outcomes.
Yeah. When your kids get a job and do well, that's when you see it.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
but I think with this MCO, people are starting to see that.
Well, they have to, right? You don't have a choice. Really
Yes, yes. And one of the things we did during this period as well, while we were in lockdown, we actually did a CSR for secondary school teachers because, I was calling my staff and, every time I call them or I have, calls or team meetings with them, it will always be very noisy. And I'll be like, what's going on? Oh, kids having classes. And I'm like, why so noisy? Oh, because teacher trying to control the students, shouting at them. Okay.
Oh man.
Yeah, and I'm like, that's not a good experience for a child.
Yeah.
Right.
And that is the use of things like Zoom, right? So I'm just basically broadcasting a teacher in front of your 40 kids.
Yes, because
that's it.
That's how they were taught to teach as well, right? And I don't blame anyone.
Yeah.
And this thing happened so fast, right? So the question I asked myself was that, what can we do? What can we do to help? Right? Because I mean, at the end of the day, you have a whole group of students who are going to have a very bad experience of online. They will also think that this is online, and that is not online. And more important, how is the teacher? You're also not helping the teacher, because how is the teacher supposed to learn how to teach when nobody taught them how to teach in a different way?
Yeah.
Right. So while we were in lockdown, I asked the team, I said, can you reach out, and try to reach out to those Form 4, Form 5 teachers, because, that's the exam year, very important. Right. And say, offer them, say that we will give free classes on how to teach online.
Oh, cool.
Okay. So, at first everybody was like, oh, everyone very busy. I said, just try lah. What's the harm? We try lah. So our first one, we were so pleasantly surprised. 280 people, sorry, we couldn't take. Max 200.
Okay.
Right?
Oh, wow. So that many teachers signed up to learn how to teach online.
Yeah. So in the end, we challenged ourselves, and I credit my team. They were all very dedicated. We taught 22 sessions and we covered 1,647 teachers.
Wow. So what was it that you tried to teach the teachers?
We explained the concept of flipping a class. We explained the concept of engaging and how do you engage using digital tools, right? So, of course, we know that, like the tools we use, they're all freemiums. It's free for a certain level and then after that you have to pay, right? Yeah. And all our teachers will turn around and say, the free one, cannot
anymore. Or cannot scale up, right?
Cannot scale up, right? So we pay for everything. But we realized that for government school teachers, there wouldn't be that sort of money to do that. So we basically taught them how to use tools which were free, right? So we taught them, oh, this is Kahoot. You can use Kahoot, very simple. You can use Kahoot to do a game. This is a Mentimeter. You can use it to do a poll.
Right.
It's free. Used up to a certain stage. This is Powtoon. You can make animated cartoons with it. Right. Right, but simple ones lah. Okay. So this is Socrates. You can also do some things with it, and then we show them examples how to do.
Nice.
Right.
So like over 1,000 of them went through that.
1,647.
Nice.
Yeah. Right. So so that's something that we are very, very proud of. And I told the whole team, I said that, look, imagine the impact we just made. Right. And I said that maybe not all of them are going to use every single tool. But one teacher probably teaches 200 students. If they use just some of the tools, imagine what kind of impact they would have made on the students.
Yeah.
Right, and it's going to be a totally different experience.
Yeah.
And so that's
that's cool.
Yeah, so we were very surprised and very, very encouraged, and that's why the whole team, nobody complained, even though they were like practically teaching back to back.
Yeah, I mean, you've got your day job, and then you have to do that, right?
Yes, this was not part of our.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I credit our teaching and learning unit. We have a teaching and learning unit. I credit them for the sheer dedication that they put into to do this. And I also credit our counselors because they reached out to schools, every school that they knew, they reached out to teachers they knew and said that, hey, we have this, you want to come?
And you can just, by the fact that, all these teachers signed up, that they were hungry to learn how to do this, right?
Yes. Yeah. And that to me is fantastically encouraging, right? That people, care.
Yeah. Right? Because I think teachers do get a bad rap, right? Primary, secondary, that the teachers these days is not like mine, during our time, they don't care. It's, this is the last job that they can do, so, they do
care,
right?
They do care. I think this whole exercise showed us that they do care. right? So and I mean, like, this thing, it happened so fast. There was no way anyone could have prepared for it,
Yeah.
right? So, but like I said, and well, each one of us has a choice to step up,
Yeah.
and there's no point moaning about it.
Mm.
Just go do something about it, right? Step up and do something.
Yeah.
Right. So in this case, the whole team, I credit the whole team for
Wow.
actually saying that, okay,
Yeah, I think congratulations to the team.
Oh,
for
thank
doing
you,
that.
thank you.
That's
We are
awesome.
very, very proud of it.
Yeah, and you should be. You should be.
So
Hey, it's over an hour already.
oops. Okay.
Yeah, no,
It's been so much fun.
It's not a problem.
talking.
We can continue. But I don't want to take too much of your time. I just have two more questions.
Mhm.
One would be, okay, so here we are where we are, and hopefully MCO lives in October, and then everything goes back to the new normal. What are your plans for INTI moving forward? How do you see your small part of the whole education world, right, evolving in the future of digital and preparing the kids to the future?
Well, our vision is to reinvent education. And we are very, very bold to say that. And we want to reinvent education because we think that when students and parents come to us, they entrust us. They entrust us. This is the second largest investment most parents make. Largest being your house.
Okay.
Right. Second largest being your kids' education. Right.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. It feels like it's the kid education first.
Okay.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah. Sorry. Okay.
Yeah. So to us, we really need to live up to that trust, right? And I also put it very simply: we are Asians. Our parents didn't say go to school, learn what you like, enjoy yourself. Our parents
Find
say,
yourself.
yes. Our parents say, go to school, make sure you get a good degree, you come out, can find job.
Get a job.
Right? Because you need to look after me when I'm old, right? So that's a very typical Asian thing, right?
Yeah,
so to me...
So this is an investment, like as you said, right? This
yes,
is an investment.
Yes. And for us, we need to acknowledge that we are, people trust us. They put money with us in order to be able to help their kids get a job. It's all about getting a job, right? And how do you make sure that they can get a job? The world is changing so fast, right? If you train just specifically, technically for a particular job, what if that job disappears?
Yeah.
What are you going to do, right? So for us, it's going to be always, how do we keep pushing, the corners of the envelope to keep delivering skills? How do we get better and better at delivering grads who have the technical knowledge, but also the wrapper of skills, right? So, and we'll never stop, right? And to us, we think that it's not something that we can do ourselves. We need industry to help us, right? Because these kids are going to go into industry. They are your future pipeline. Yeah. So, anyone from industry, you have an opinion, come and talk to us.
Yeah.
We're very keen to listen because you know what? You're also invested in this. Yeah. You're going to get those kids in.
That's right. The workforce. Yeah.
And then please don't complain. Right? Don't complain that, I have to retrain them. Come and tell us instead. Tell us what you had to retrain them in so that we can help as well. But this is how we look at it. It's a partnership. Industry, academia, and the government. We need to do this together. Yeah. Right? And it's the most important thing because at the end of the day, education is the fastest way to change a family's socio-economic status. Right? So, and frankly, that's also what scares me, that during this MCO period, during this pandemic, the world over, millions of kids are not in school. Right? And are they getting a quality education? If they are not, we're going to have a generation that isn't going to be able to be productive or isn't going to achieve the sort of productivity levels that will help their families. Right? So that's really scary. And I guess the other scary bit is that, education is supposed to help us to see humanity, to see the world, and the similarities between us. Right? Globalization is all about that. How do we become more integrated? How do we see the similarities? How do we help each other? With this whole borders closing, social distancing, I'm really afraid that that's the piece that's going to be lost.
Yeah.
Right.
You start with the countries being so siloed, and
Yeah.
then the societies within it being quite siloed.
Right. So to me, then this is where tech comes in. How do we use tech to make sure that as we have to physically distance ourselves, we are still building the bridges, building the bonds, and seeing how similar we are. Right. I always think we're very similar because I put it this way, okay, whatever color, whatever faith, whatever culture you come from, you tell me as a human being you don't suffer the same pain when you lose someone. You don't suffer the same, but the most essential thing, when you lose someone, you suffer pain. You don't enjoy the same joys when you have a child. You do.
Yeah.
What's so different about us? Right. So if you look at it that way, you don't see the differences. Right, so yeah.
Nice. So I guess I'll let you go with one last question, right? So you're saying how you at the start you kind of landed into this job, right? But what you mentioned when you were in the MNC was, this education or leaving behind a legacy to the others was was you anyway, right?
Yeah.
And the job found you, right?
Yes,
now you are where you
yes.
are, and you're fulfilled by helping these thousands of kids, right?
Yeah.
So what's the plans for you yourself moving forward, right? So INTI is gonna rebuild education, right? Or reinvent education, you said. What about you? What's your own personal plans?
Be adaptable. Right? Look at everything as an opportunity. Look at everything as an exploration. I don't have any plans. I'll just see what comes along and enjoy it. Right. And I'll ask myself, am I making an impact? If I'm making an impact, that's it.
And you seem to be doing it right now, so
yes.
Keep it up.
Thank you.
Okay, now thanks a lot for coming in.
No worries.
All right, it's been enjoyable.
Yeah, thanks.
See you soon.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.